One day, our whole class went to the circus. I was very happy when I went, because I was almost 8 years old, and I had only been to the circus once, and that was a long time ago. Most importantly, Alice is only 6 years old, and she had already been to the circus 3 whole times. It was very frustrating, and now we all went to the circus, and I thought how good it was that I was big enough to see everything properly. But that time I was little. I didn't understand what the circus was. Then when the acrobats came into the arena and one of them climbed on top of the other one, I laughed terribly, because I thought they were doing it on purpose, just for fun, because at home I had never seen grown-up uncles climbing on each other, and it never happened in the street either, so I laughed out loud. I didn't realize it was the artists showing their agility. That time I watched the orchestra more, how they played, some on the drum, some on the trumpet, and the conductor waved his baton, and nobody looked at him, but everybody played as they wanted. I really liked that. But while I was looking at these musicians, there were performers in the middle of the arena, and I didn't see them and missed the most interesting part. Of course, I was just stupid at the time. So we went to the circus as a class. I liked at once that it smelled something special, and that there were bright posters on the walls, and it was bright all around, and in the middle there was a beautiful carpet, and the ceiling was high, and there were different shiny swings tied there. And at that time the music started playing, and everybody started to sit down. And then they bought ice cream and started to eat it. And suddenly, a whole group of people dressed very nicely, in red suits with yellow stripes, came out from behind a red curtain. They stood on the sides of the curtain, and their chief in a black suit walked between them. He shouted something loudly and a little incomprehensibly, and the music played fast and loud, and a juggling artist jumped into the arena, and the fun began. He threw balls, 10 or 100 at a time, upward and caught them back, and then he grabbed a striped ball and started playing with it, and he'd hit it with his head, and the back of his head, and his forehead, and his forehead, and he'd roll it on his back, and he'd kick it with his heel, and it would roll all over his body like it was magnetized. It was very beautiful. And suddenly the juggler threw this ball to us in the audience, and then there was a real commotion, because I caught this ball and threw it at Victor, and Victor threw it at Michael, and Michael suddenly aimed and suddenly threw it right at the conductor, but it didn't hit him. It hit the drum. Bam! The drummer got angry and threw the ball back to the juggler, but the ball didn't fly. It just hit a beautiful lady in her hair, and she got something incomprehensible instead of a hairdo, and we all laughed so hard we almost died. And when the juggler ran away behind the curtain, we couldn't calm down for a long time. But then a huge blue ball was rolled into the arena, and the uncle who announces the numbers stepped into the middle and shouted something in an unintelligible voice. It was impossible to understand anything, and the orchestra played something very merry again, only not so fast as before. Suddenly a little girl ran into the arena. I had never seen anyone so small and beautiful. She had blue eyes and long eyelashes around them. She was in a silver dress with an airy cloak, and she had long arms. She flapped them like a bird and jumped up into this huge blue balloon that had been rolled out for her. She stood on the balloon, and then all of a sudden she ran, as if she wanted to jump off it. But the ball rolled under her feet, and she was on it like that, as if she were running, but she was actually riding around the arena. I'd never seen girls like that before. They were all ordinary, but this one was special. She ran on the ball with her little feet, as on a flat floor, and the blue ball carried her on itself. She could ride on it and straight and back and left and wherever you want. She laughed merrily as she ran like that, as if she were floating, and I thought she must be Thumbelina, so small and sweet and extraordinary was she. At that time she stopped, and someone gave her different bells and bracelets, and she put them on her shoes and on her hands and began to twirl slowly on the ball again, as if she were dancing, and the orchestra played soft music, and one could hear the golden bells on her long arms tinkling, and it was like a fairy tale. And then the lights went out, and it turned out that the girl could also glow in the dark, and she slowly floated in a circle and glowed and tinkled, and it was amazing. I had never seen anything like it in my whole life. And when the lights came on, everybody clapped and shouted, "Bravo!" And I shouted, "Bravo!" too. And the girl jumped off her balloon and ran forward closer to us, and suddenly on the run she flipped over her head like lightning, and again and again and again, and forward and forward. And it seemed to me that she was about to crash into the barrier, and I was suddenly very frightened and jumped to my feet and wanted to run to her to pick her up and save her. But the girl suddenly stopped like a halt, spread her long arms. The orchestra was silent, and she stood smiling, and everybody clapped as hard as they could and even tapped their feet. And at that minute this girl looked at me, and I saw that she saw that I saw her, and that I saw that she saw me too, and she waved and smiled at me. She waved to me alone and smiled, and I wanted to run up to her again, and I held out my arms to her, and she suddenly sent an air kiss to everyone and ran behind the red curtain where all the performers were running away, and the clown and his rooster came into the arena and started sneezing and falling down, but I didn't care about him. I kept thinking about the girl on the balloon, how amazing she was and how she waved and smiled at me, and I didn't want to look at anything else. On the contrary, I closed my eyes tightly not to see that silly clown with his red nose, because he was spoiling my girl. She was still pictured to me on her blue balloon. And then the intermission was announced, and everybody ran to the cafeteria to drink lemonade, and I quietly went downstairs and came to the curtain from which the actors were coming out. I wanted to look at that girl again, so I stood at the curtain and looked. What if she came out? But she didn't come out. And after the intermission, the lions were performing, and I did not like that the tamer kept pulling them by their tails, as if they were not lions but dead cats. He would make them move from place to place, or he would lay them on the floor in rows and walk on the lions with his feet like a carpet. And they looked like they weren't being allowed to lie still. It was not interesting, because a lion should hunt and chase a buffalo in the endless prairies and announce the neighborhood with a menacing roar, causing awe of the local population. This way, it's not a lion. It's just, I don't know what it is. And when it was over and we went home, I kept thinking about the girl in the balloon. And that night, my dad asked me, "How was it? Did you enjoy the circus?" I said, "Daddy, there's a girl in the circus. She dances on the blue balloon. She's so great, she's the best." She smiled and waved at me. Just me, honestly. "Do you understand, Daddy? Let's go to the circus next Sunday. I'll show her to you." Daddy said, "We'll definitely go. I love the circus." And Mom looked at both of us as if it was the first time she'd ever seen us. And a long week began, and I ate, studied, got up and went to bed, played and even fought, and still every day I wondered when Sunday would come. And Daddy and I would go to the circus, and I would see the girl in the balloon again and show her to Daddy, and maybe Daddy would invite her to visit us, and I would give her a toy gun and draw a ship with all the sails. But on Sunday, Daddy couldn't go. His friends came to see him, and they were rummaging through some blueprints and shouting and smoking and drinking tea and sitting up late, and after them, Mama got a headache, and Daddy told me, "Next Sunday, I take the Pledge of Honor and Allegiance. And I was so looking forward to next Sunday, I don't even remember living another week. And my dad kept his word. He went to the circus with me and bought second-row tickets. And I was glad we were sitting so close. And the show started, and I started waiting for the girl on the balloon to appear. But the person who announces the numbers kept announcing different other artists, and they came out and performed in different ways. But the girl didn't show up, and I was trembling with impatience. I really wanted my daddy to see how extraordinary she was in her silver costume with an air cape, and how she deftly runs on the blue balloon. And every time the announcer came out, I whispered to Daddy, "He's going to announce her." But he would announce someone else, and I even hated him. And I kept saying to Daddy, "Screw him. It's nothing. It's not that." And Dad would say without looking at me, "Don't interfere, please. It's very interesting. It's the best." I thought that Dad must not know much about the circus if he was interested. Let's see what he says when he sees the girl in the balloon. He'll jump 2 meters high in his chair. But then the announcer came out and shouted in his deaf voice, "Intermission!" I couldn't believe my ears. Intermission! Why? Because in the second section there will be only lions. Where's my balloon girl? Where is she? Why isn't she performing? Maybe she's sick. Maybe she fell and got a concussion. I said, "Daddy, let's go quickly to find out where the girl on the balloon is." Daddy replied, Yes. Where's your equilibrist? I can't see her. Let's go and buy a program." He was happy and satisfied. He looked around, laughed, and said, "I love the circus. I love the circus. The smell, it makes me dizzy." And we went into the corridor. A lot of people crowded there, and candy and waffles were sold, and pictures of different tiger faces hung on the walls, and we wandered around a bit and finally found a controller with programs. Dad bought one from her and started looking through it, and I couldn't stand it, and asked the checker, "Can you tell me, please, when is the girl on the balloon going to perform?" "What girl?" Dad said. "The program lists a balloon equilibrist T. Wilson. Where is she?" I stood there and didn't say a word. The checker said, "Oh, you mean Tanya Wilson? She's gone. She's gone. Why didn't you realize it was late?" I stood there and didn't say a word. Daddy said, "We haven't had any peace in 2 weeks. We want to see the equilibrist T. Wilson, and she's not here." The checker said, "She's gone with her parents. Her parents are the bronze men duo Young. Maybe you've heard of them?" "Oh, that's too bad. They just left yesterday." I said, "You see, Dad." I didn't know she was leaving. What a shame. Oh my God. Oh well, it can't be helped. I asked the checker, "Is this for sure?" She said, "That's right." I said, "And where to? You don't know?" She said, "San Francisco. That's where. Far away. San Francisco. I know. It's at the very end of the map, from New York to the left." I said, "What a long way." The checkout lady was in a hurry. "Go on. Go to your seats. The lights are going out." Dad picked up on it. "Come on, Dennis. The lions are coming. They're scrawny, they're roaring, they're terrifying. Let's go see them." I said, "Let's go home, Dad." He said, "That's the way it is." The checker laughed, but we got to the check room, and I gave him my number, and we got dressed and left the circus. We walked down the boulevard and walked like that for quite a while. Then I said, "San Francisco is at the very end of the map. It takes a whole month to get there by train." Papa was silent. I guess he didn't care about me. We walked a little further and I suddenly remembered about airplanes and said, "And on a jet airplane in 3 hours and there." But Dad still didn't answer. He held my hand tightly. When we got to Main Street, he said, "Let's go to an ice cream parlor. Let's have 2 of each, huh?" I said, I don't feel like it, Dad. They serve water there. It's called Crystal Spring. I've never had better water anywhere in the world. I said, I don't feel like it, Daddy. He didn't try to talk me into it. He took a step farther and squeezed my hand tightly. It even hurt me. He was walking very fast, and I could hardly keep up with him. Why was he walking so fast? Why wasn't he talking to me? I wanted to look at him. I looked up. He had a very serious and sad face,